Hello and a very good morning to all News 9 viewers. I'm Neha Bhan and in fact we get you the latest updates from all across the world, but today particularly is a very important day back home because today the Supreme Court will deliver its verdict on Article 370. Let's get you the latest from that front. Now, the Supreme Court is set to deliver its verdict in the case challenging the Union government's 2019 decision to repeal the special status of Jammu and Kashmir under Article 370 of the Constitution. The Constitution bench, led by Chief Justice of India D.Y. Chandrachud, had reserved the judgment on the 5th of September 2023 after an extensive 16-day hearing. The petitioners in the matter had challenged not only the abrogation of Article 370 but also the J&K Reorganization Act, which resulted in the bifurcation of the state into union territories of Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh. Heightened security in the valley regarding the decision on Article 370 and 35A. VIP movements are restricted, including on the national highway. The cyber police issued a social media warning, closely monitoring online activities. In Srinagar district, the deputy magistrates received special instructions for every area, with officers posted to maintain law and order. Now, I'll also be joined by Advocate Ashish Pandey. But in fact, before that, let's quickly take a look at the key arguments that were presented during the hearing. If you have to speak about the arguments in favor, the government argued that the abrogation was necessary to fully integrate Jammu and Kashmir into the Union of India. The government claimed that the valley had prospered in the past 4.5 years and the repeal of Article 370 in August 2019. The government stated that elections were due in Jammu and Kashmir and once the situation returned to normal, it would revert to full statehood. The centre contended that the abrogation led to a significant reduction in terrorism, infiltration, stone pelting and casualties among security personnel. Now, let's quickly take a look at the arguments against it. The petitioners argued that the union used brute majority in the parliament and executive orders to divide a full-fledged state into union territories, which they claim was an attack on federalism and a fraud played on the Constitution. Petitioners argued that Article 370 had assumed a permanent character after the dissolution of the Jammu and Kashmir Constituent Assembly in 1957. The petitioners challenged the constitutionality of the procedure adopted to repeal Article 370 and the abolition of Jammu and Kashmir's statehood. Let's now quickly go across to Advocate Ashish Pandey. He, in fact, is an advocate from the Supreme Court. He joins me live. Very good morning to you, Mr. Ashish. I'll begin by asking you, how do you see this whole issue surrounding the abrogation of Article 370? And, you know, as the Honorable Supreme Court asked, how can a provision which was specifically mentioned as temporary in the Constitution become permanent?
Good morning to you as well. You see, it's a big day, and the line of arguments you just mentioned, that if we go step by step, you said the first argument which was taken before the court that states, any particular political territory could not be reorganized. This argument is not valid. I mean, although the verdict is pending and we will see what is going to happen in the court, but from legal point of view, you see, there have been many instances in India itself where a state was bifurcated and union territory was created. For example, you see a state of Haryana and a state of Punjab were created and a union territory of Chandigarh was bought. Now, the second line of argument, which you said that the constitutionality of the mechanism which the government adopted for the purpose of doing this entire exercise is concerned. As far as this question is concerned, obviously, the court will pronounce its verdict whether 370 could be abrogated through 367 route or not. And you see, personally speaking, I feel the kind of development which we have seen post abrogation of 370 in the state of Jammu Kashmir suggests that the government has done a right thing.
Right. Ashish, I'd also like you to speak in depth about the main arguments in favor of the abrogation of Article 370 and about the main arguments against it.
Yes. You see, the arguments which the petitioner took was first the instrument of accession was a conditional instrument of accession. There was not there was never full integration of the state of Jammu Kashmir with the state of India. And the second argument was, even if this position was to be reversed, it could have been only done when the recommendation of Constituent Assembly was there. And the argument was that because the Constituent Assembly dissolved in case of the state of Jammu Kashmir, there was a vacuum, and in that situation, the nature of Article 370 took a permanent status, and because of that thing, the Parliament of India didn't have any power to amend that article or abrogate that article. This was sum and substance of the argument which the petitioner took. Now, from the government of India side, what they said that this article 370 was never meant to be a permanent article. Even the Constitution says that the nature of this article is temporary. And what happened post-independence, when the state of Jammu Kashmir acceded into Indian political system, they formed their own constituent assembly for the purpose of drafting of their own constitution. But what happened, and then there was a provision that this constituent assembly could have recommended to the Parliament of India for the purpose of abrogation of Article 370. And once this constituent assembly dissolved without recommending this thing, then this situation evolved into a situation where Article 367 could be used, where by means of a presidential order, Constituent Assembly could be equated with the Legislative Assembly of the state. And because at that point in time in August 2019, Constituent Assembly was not in power, presidential rule was there in the state, so that power was vested in the Parliament of India, and the Parliament of India suggested to the President of India that Constituent Assembly could be read as the state assembly as well. And once that presidential order was in power, using that particular order, Government of India abrogated Article 370 and said there is no special provision for the state of Jammu Kashmir.
Right. Ashish, do stay with us. In fact, we
also
have
one more argument which was taken, but that is not a legal argument. See, at times what we have seen in media, most of the time it has been suggested that because the end result of these amendments have been very beneficial for the state of Jammu Kashmir, so this entire constitutional exercise was legitimate. But then in legal parallels, what we say that it just does not justify the means. So we are talking about the constitutionality of the means. Please.
Right. Ashish, I want you to hold on to that thought. I'll come back to you. Do stay on with us. But I also want all our viewers to now listen to several of the reactions coming in. We have Ghulam Nabi Azad, the former Chief Minister of Jammu and Kashmir, Omar Abdullah, again the former Chief Minister of Jammu and Kashmir, Mehbooba Mufti, the same, Priyanka Chaturvedi, several other reactions coming in. Let's quickly take a listen and then we'll resume the discussion.
इस वक्त तो एक अंदाज़ा ही लगाना है, तो कल 10 बजे जब जजमेंट आएगी, वर्डिक्ट आएगा, तो उस वक्त पता चलेगा कि क्या है कि कश्मीरियों के हक में है, जम्मू कश्मीर के अवाम के हक में है या उनके खिलाफ है। इस वक्त हम यही कह सकते हैं कि हम 2 महीने या 4 महीने से इंतज़ार नहीं कर रहे हैं। हम गुज़िश्ता 4 साल से ज़्यादा अरसे से इस दिन का इंतज़ार कर रहे थे कि कब सुप्रीम कोर्ट, क्योंकि पहले 3 साल में तो कोई सुनाई हुई नहीं, सिर्फ एक दफ़ा आधे घंटे के लिए सुनवाई हुई थी, और जिसका हम
जब हम सुप्रीम कोर्ट में गए थे 2019 में, तो इंसाफ हासिल करने की उम्मीद लेके गए थे। आज भी हमारे जज्बात वही हैं। हमें बेसब्री से इस दिन का इंतजार था। कल सुबह ऑनरेबल चीफ जस्टिस और उनके साथ 4 ऑनरेबल जजेस जो हैं वो अपना फैसला सुनाएंगे।
देखिए, सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने पहले ही कई बार एक तो इस मुद्दे को सुनने में बहुत देर कर दी, 5 साल लगाए इस मुद्दे को सुनने में। उसके बाद मैं समझती हूँ कि खुद सुप्रीम कोर्ट में कई बार जो पुराने हमारे जजमेंट्स आई हैं उसमें ये कहा गया है कि 370 को जम्मू कश्मीर की कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंट असेंबली के बगैर कोई नहीं हटा सकता है जी। तो मुझे लगता है ये फैसला तो सीधा होना चाहिए कि ये
370 धारा एक टेम्पररी मेजर लगाई गई थी। खुद पंडित जवाहरलाल नेहरू जी ने कहा था उस समय पर जब जम्मू और कश्मीर पे काफी विवाद चल रहा था। हमारी मान्यता स्पष्ट ये थी, शिवसेना की भूमिका ये रही है कि 370 को हटाने का समय आ गया था और वो हटाया गया। उसके चलते जो वादे भारतीय जनता पार्टी ने किए थे जब हटाया गया तो हम उसके समर्थन में थे, पर वादा ये किया गया था कि प्रजातंत्र बहाल होगा, वहां पे इलेक्शंस जल्द से जल्द होंगे, जनता की सरकार बनकर आएगी, जो आतंकी हमले हैं वो खत्म होंगे, कश्मीरी पंडित भाई बहन जो हमारा एजेंडा बाला साहेब ठाकरे जी के समय से रहा है कि वो वापस अपने घर पहुंचे, वो पूरा करेंगे। पर मैं खुद ही जम्मू गई थी जब टारगेटेड किलिंग के शिकार हमारे कश्मीरी पंडित भाई बहन हुए हैं, तो उनके साथ जो नाइंसाफी अब तक चल रही है वो दुर्भाग्यपूर्ण है। और जो वादा किए थे 370 हटाने के बाद वो आज तक पूरे नहीं किए गए हैं, वो मैं मानती हूं जनता के साथ एक खिलवाड़ हुआ है।
Well, now coming back to you, Ashish, I understand, you're presenting a legal point of view, but I want to know from you, I can see you smiling, but I want to know from you, violence has been at an all-time low with almost no incidents of stone pelting being reported in the last 4 years. Now, that's a fact. Doesn't it show that the people of Jammu and Kashmir have accepted the abrogation?
Yes, less or more, I agree with you. The people of Jammu and Kashmir, I mean, a few of them I know personally, they're good friends, and they have accepted what 370 abrogation of 370 has bring to the valley. In fact, you see, the main petitioner, the ex-IAS officer, he has also withdrawn his petition. He is no longer contesting that this entire exercise was unconstitutional. Now, you see, Priyanka ji mentioned one very important fact. See, at the one end, legally, I personally believe the judgment is yet to come. That entire exercise was constitutionally valid. The parliament exercises the sovereign function of any nation, and that will of the people, the sovereign will of the people, is spoken through the parliament that the days of 370 are not now over, and there should be full integration of the state of Jammu Kashmir into Union of India. Now, the second question, which is very pertinent, and that is pertinent from the point of view what verdict is going to come today also, is what are the rights of the resident of Jammu Kashmir. I mean, now the statehood has been taken away, but the Honorable Prime Minister himself has said that the government's intention is to restore the complete statehood and ensure that the free and fair elections are taking place as soon as possible. We will have to see what Supreme Court, Honorable Supreme Court is commenting on that, and what kind of process is being followed by the government thereafter.
All right. Before I let you go, I have 2 more questions for you. First, I'd like you to answer what were the constitutional implications of Article 370 from a legal standpoint?
See, 370 says that the state of Jammu Kashmir enjoyed kind of autonomy. When we say autonomy, it means the rules and regulations and the laws which are framed or enacted by the Parliament of India were not directly applicable in the state of Jammu and Kashmir. The state assembly had the power to whether adopt those laws for the purpose of implementation in state of Jammu Kashmir, or they could have enacted separate laws. So that was the situation. And apart from that, there was one particular article 35A, which said that the state assembly had the power to enact certain special provisions for the purpose of residents of the state, but similar provisions we say in case of other states as well. But as far as that autonomy was concerned, that became a political tool, not in India, but internationally. And you see, because of that thing, there was so much unrest and violence in the state of Jammu Kashmir. And I believe that post-abrogation of 370, as we are seeing these days, the state will return to normalcy, and then we see that the fruits of development will reach to the valley.
Right. Quickly, Ashish, I want to know from you, what should we expect from today's Supreme Court ruling?
I
know it's a difficult one. But
I
what do
should
you
not
think?
predict what is going to be there, but I believe less or more it will be in line with what government is expecting.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much, Ashish, for joining us with all of those important insights. We now slip it a quick break. Do stay with us. Do not go anywhere. We have further updates for all of you all.
वर्ष 2070 तक भारत नेट जीरो का लक्ष्य हासिल करेगा।
There's certainly a wall of capital coming into the clean tech, climate tech space, not just in India but across the world.
This and more, streaming on world's first news OTT, News 9 Plus. Download now.
Well, moving on to some other updates now. Former Union Minister Vishnu Deosai, a 4-time Lok Sabha MP and 2-time MLA, is in undivided Madhya Pradesh, has been officially named as the Chief Minister of Chhattisgarh by the BJP. The announcement came after days of speculation and follows the party's remarkable electoral success, marking a significant turnaround from the 2018 elections. According to reports, former Chief Minister Raman Singh is being considered for the role of the Speaker of the Assembly. Now, there is also a possibility of having 2 Deputy Chief Ministers, with Arjun Sao and Vijay Sharma emerging as potential candidates for these positions. Notably, both leaders are first-time MLAs. Vijay Sharma secured victory in his inaugural election, while Arjun Sao has previously served as an MP.
आभार व्यक्त करना चाहूंगा। साथ ही साथ छत्तीसगढ़ में भारतीय जनता पार्टी की बड़ी सफलता के लिए छत्तीसगढ़ के लाखों कार्यकर्ताओं को भी धन्यवाद देना चाहूंगा, जिन्होंने रात दिन मेहनत करके भारतीय जनता पार्टी को जिताया। साथ ही साथ हमारे राष्ट्रीय नेतृत्व, हमारे देश के यशस्वी प्रधानमंत्री आदरणीय श्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी, हमारे देश के यशस्वी गृह मंत्री आदरणीय अमित शाह जी, हमारे राष्ट्रीय अध्यक्ष आदरणीय श्री जगत प्रकाश नड्डा जी सहित और अनेकों राष्ट्रीय नेतृत्व, हमारे केंद्र सरकार के मंत्री छत्तीसगढ़ में चुनाव प्रचार के लिए आए और यहाँ पर छत्तीसगढ़ में पूरे चुनाव प्रचार का कमान आदरणीय ओम प्रकाश माथुर जी संभाले हुए थे और उनका रिकॉर्ड है, तो जहां पर भी जाते हैं चुनाव जिताते हैं और उनके मार्गदर्शन में हमारा पूरा प्रदेश नेतृत्व, पूरा प्रदेश के हमारे लाखों कार्यकर्ता चुनाव प्रचार में जुटे और भारतीय जनता पार्टी को अभूतपूर्व सफलता दिलाए। इसके लिए आदरणीय ओम प्रकाश माथुर जी, सह प्रभारी हमारे मनसुख भाई मांडविया जी, नितिन नवीन जी और हमारे जो प्रदेश के नेतृत्व हैं, उन सबको भी मैं बधाई और धन्यवाद देना चाहूंगा, जिनके अथक प्रयास से भारतीय जनता पार्टी की इतनी बड़ी सफलता मिली और आज हम लोग सरकार बनाने में सफल हुए हैं। एक मुख्यमंत्री के नाते हमारी प्राथमिकता होगी कि आज छत्तीसगढ़ में जिस तरह से 5 साल तक कांग्रेस पार्टी की सरकार चल रही थी, जिससे हर वर्ग तरस था, और आज इस सरकार से छुटकारा मिला है और हमारी प्राथमिकता रहेगी कि हम लोगों ने जो चुनावी घोषणा पत्र जारी किया है, मोदी की गारंटी, उसमें जो भी वादे छत्तीसगढ़ की जनता से किए हैं उसको प्राथमिकता से पूरा करना, ये हमारा काम होगा। पिछले 5 वर्षों में पूरे प्रदेश में 18 लाख लोग पक्का के मकान, प्रधानमंत्री आवास से वंचित हुए हैं। सबसे पहला काम 18 लाख मकान की स्वीकृति होगा और 25 दिसंबर जो हमारे छत्तीसगढ़ के निर्माता और भारतीय जनता पार्टी के संस्थापक स्वर्गीय अटल बिहारी वाजपेयी जी का जन्म दिवस है। उस दिन 2 साल का बोनस जो हम लोग की 15 साल की सरकार में नहीं दे पाए थे, 2 साल के दौरान जितने भी कृषक धान बेचे हैं उनके सबके खाते में 2 साल का बोनस दिया जाएगा। ये सबसे पहले किया जाएगा और उसके बाद जो भी मोदी की गारंटी में हम लोगों ने वादा किया है सबको हम लोग 5 वर्षों में पूरा करेंगे।
Amidst ongoing suspense over the chief ministerial faces, today newly elected BJP MLAs in Madhya Pradesh will gather to choose their leader. The announcement of the new chief minister is anticipated with a meeting scheduled at the BJP state office for party MLAs. The BJP legislature party will gather to select its leader with central observer Manohar Lal Khattar, Dr. K. Lakshman and Ms. Asha Lakra present. Meanwhile, in Rajasthan, amid suspense over the chief ministerial position and Congress citing a lack of discipline, both new and former MLAs gathered at Vasundhara Raje's Jaipur residence. Ongoing income tax raids at properties associated with Congress Rajya Sabha MP Dheeraj Sahu have prompted the deployment of extra cash counting machines and personnel to hasten the tallying of seized notes. With a considerable amount of cash yet to be counted, the IT department has in fact opted to bolster resources for a quicker process. Simultaneously, the Congress has chosen to distance itself from Rajya Sabha MP Dheeraj Sahu following the discovery of a substantial sum of cash linked to a liquor company associated with him. Cash amounting to over 300 crore rupees has been seized from in fact the residence of the Congress MP.
देखिए, मुझे तो बड़ा आश्चर्य है, आजादी के बाद किसी भी दल के सांसद के घर से इतनी बड़ी मात्रा में कैश नहीं पकड़ी गई होगी। सैकड़ों करोड़ों रुपए का कैश सांसद के घर से मिलता है और पूरा इंडी अलायंस मौन है इस करप्शन पर। मैं तो पूछना चाहूंगा इनके साथियों को, कांग्रेस का मौन तो हमें समझ में आता है क्योंकि इनकी फितरत ही भ्रष्टाचार की है, परंतु चाहे तृणमूल कांग्रेस हो, चाहे जेडीयू हो, चाहे आरजेडी हो, ये सारे दल डीएमके सहित चुप बैठे हैं। सपा भी चुप बैठी है, कोई रिएक्शन नहीं। अब मुझे समझ में आ रहा है कि मोदी जी के खिलाफ ये जो एक प्रचार अभियान चला कि एजेंसियों का दुरुपयोग हुआ है, वो क्यों चलाया गया? क्योंकि इनके जहन में एक डर था कि हमारे करप्शन के सारे कच्चे चिट्ठे खुल जाएंगे। और मैं मानता हूं कि ये उचित ही हुआ है। जिस प्रकार से इतनी विपुल मात्रा में भ्रष्टाचार झारखंड जैसे गरीब राज्य में हो रहा है, वो आंख खोलने वाला है। और ये जो राजनीतिक प्रोपेगेंडा करते हैं एजेंसियों के दुरुपयोग का, उनको ये अपने आप ही उनके ही कृत्य से जवाब मिल गया है। इतना भारी करप्शन करने के बाद भी अगर कोई एजेंसी काम न करे तो एजेंसी की क्षमता पर सवाल उठते हैं। और मैं मानता हूं कि राहुल गांधी से लेकर इंडी अलायंस के सभी लोगों ने इसका जवाब देना चाहिए। भारतीय जनता पार्टी ये मसले को बहुत नीचे तक, इस देश के जन जन तक ले जाएगी और जागरूकता लाने का प्रयास करेगी। हमारी लड़ाई 2014 से भ्रष्टाचार के खिलाफ है। ढेर सारे कदम नरेंद्र मोदी सरकार ने उठाए हैं, प्रधानमंत्री जी ने उठाए हैं और इस दिशा में हम जन जागृति लाकर इसको जरूर लोगों तक पहुंचाएंगे।
Today, the Supreme Court is set to review the plea submitted by Aam Aadmi Party leader Sanjay Singh concerning his arrest by the Enforcement Directorate in connection to the alleged Delhi excise policy scam. Justices Sanjeev Khanna and SNV Bhatti will address the matter on the 11th of December as per the court's cause list. Meanwhile, Special Judge M.K. Nagpal at the Rose Avenue Court postponed the hearing on Aam Aadmi Party MP's bail plea, scheduling the next session for the 12th of December.
क्या है मोदी जी का,
The Delhi High Court will hear a defamation case filed by TMC MP Mahua Moitra today. The case was initiated amid accusations of suggesting that she received cash and gifts for posing questions to the Lok Sabha. Mahua Moitra initiated a defamation case against individuals Dubey and Jai Anant Dehad along with several media houses, challenging baseless allegations of receiving bribes for posing questions in Parliament. Here we are referring to the cash for query case. Mahua Moitra has been accused of compromising her parliamentary login details. She's been accused of sharing those details with businessman Hira Nandani, and she's apparently asked, that is what the allegations are, that she asked questions relating to businessman Adani at the behest of Hira Nandani. Now, in her plea, Moitra appealed to the Delhi High Court for directives restraining Dubai, Dehad Rai and numerous media outlets for disseminating or publishing any false and defamatory content about her. We now slip into a short break. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere.
The scale of the attack was something that we were surprised at. David Hadley was a double agent. The Americans did not want him to be fully exposed, so all that he probably shared with the Americans was not shared with us in terms of intelligence. If we had that, I'm sure that we would have been able to deal with the situation far better.
This and more, streaming on world's first news OTT, News 9+. Download now.
Yes, the scale of the attack surprised us.
When you get a series of alerts, 16 intelligence alerts, if Maharashtra government at that time had alerted the Coast Guard and the Navy, this 2611 would not have happened at all.
And one of the details they had planned was to use these dhagas to mislead the investigative agencies.
All this was to be presented as a Hindu terror.
So it was a Pakistan operation. The LET was the front end.
As the attacks were on, it was clear that they were planned and launched from Pakistani territory.
For all of those victims of terror that was exported from Pakistan over the years, including but not limited to 2611.
This and more, streaming on world's first news OTT, News 9+. Download now.
He thought he could outlast us. And 1 year later, the evidence is right here in this room.
Who will blink first?
So far from preventing the expansion of NATO, Russian actions have actually resulted in the expansion of NATO.
It's a mess for Russia and it's a mess for the Western world, for NATO and the United States.
Putin is a dictator, and if he loses, that means the end of his regime, and probably of him personally. So he has to keep going.
Year 2, no end in sight. Streaming now.
The following content may contain visuals that are disturbing, graphic, or sensitive in nature. Viewer discretion is advised. This material is intended for mature audiences and may not be suitable for all viewers. Please exercise caution while watching, and if you find such content distressing, we recommend discontinuing viewing. This disclaimer is provided to ensure awareness and to prioritize viewer well-being.
Welcome back. The war between Israel and Hamas has now entered its 66th day. Let's get you the latest update from the war front. Israel has intensified its military campaign in southern Gaza. The IDF their strikes over 250 Hamas targets in 24 hours. 300 people killed, over 550 wounded in 24 hours. That is what the Gaza Health Ministry has stated. No hostages to be released unless demands met. That is what Hamas has stated, to which Israel has replied by saying that the war will go on, could go on for months. Benjamin Netanyahu there calling on Hamas to lay down their arms and surrender now. Palestinian men stripped for security reasons. That is what Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari has stated. Meanwhile, UNRWA says food, water and fuel used as weapons of war in Gaza. The IDF claimed on Sunday that it struck over 250 terror targets in the last 24 hours. In a message posted on Telegram, it stated that IDF troops located and destroyed weapon stocks, carried out targeted raids on military sites, destroyed underground terror tunnel shafts and thwarted armed terrorist cells planning to attack IDF troops. The IDF reported that an Israeli military fighter jet directed by ground troops struck a Hamas military communications site located adjacent to a mosque in the southern Gaza Strip overnight. Following the strike, the troops conducted a targeted raid on the site. This is according to them. Now, over the past day, the IDF troops fired precise munitions and struck over underground tunnel shafts in Khan Yunis. In addition, a drone assisted IDF troops in identifying an armed terrorist cell that planned to attack additional IDF troops in the area. The terrorist cell was eliminated. That is what the IDF further claimed. The IDF also claimed that it carried out a raid on a Hamas military command center in Shejia. Israeli Chief Military Spokesperson Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari commented on the viral photos depicting detained Palestinian men stripped down to their underwear, which circulated in the media. He stated that the pictures represented a routine security procedure to ensure that detainees were not carrying any hidden explosives. Hagari explained, it's something we've been doing for years during battles because we have had incidents when people have detonated themselves upon our forces. So this is a part of the process, quote unquote. Listen in.
תוך כדי שאנחנו הורגים מחבלים ונלחמים מחבלים, יש כניעה או יציאה החוצה של הרבה מאוד אנשים, חלקם גם חמושים שנפרדים מהנשק, אבל יש גם הרבה גברים שיוצאים החוצה שחלקם היו במרחב הזה. כשאנחנו מזהים קבוצה כזאת שיצאה אלינו החוצה, נכנעה במרחב אחרי שאנחנו קורזים אליה, אנחנו מורידים לה את הבגדים מכיוון שאנחנו חוששים מחגורות נפץ. זה דבר שאנחנו עושים אותו לאורך שנים בלחימה, וגם נתקלנו במקרים שאנשים התפוצצו על כוחותינו. זה חלק מהתהליך. בתהליך הזה מתבצעת גם חקירה. בתוך החקירה הזאת מתגלים גם בשטח אנשי חמאס. לא כולם אנשי חמאס או ארגוני טרור, ולכן הדבר שאנחנו עושים בגמר החקירה, עולים על בגדים, זה מה שצריך לעשות, ואיפה שזה לא קרה, אנחנו נשנה את העניין הזה, כי זה מה שצריך לקרות, ועוצרים את מי שהוא חבר ארגון טרור, ומביאים אותו פה לחקירה. חלק מהחקירות קורות בשטח, וחלק מהאנשים שהם אינם חברי ארגון טרור, אלא אזרחים שהיו במרחב, משוחררים לנקז דרומה, איפה שהאזרחים העזתים נמצאים. התמונות שהופצו הן לא תמונות של דובר צה"ל. אנחנו מנהלים את התמונות שלנו במלחמה, ונחליט מה להוציא החוצה.
Plumes of smoke were seen rising above destroyed buildings near the Israel-Gaza border on Sunday. Israel vowed to annihilate Hamas after the terrorist outfit carried out a deadly assault on southern Israel on the 7th of October, killing about 1,200 people and taking 240 Israeli as hostages. Since then, Gaza's health authorities say about 18,000 people have been confirmed killed and 49,500 injured in Israeli strikes, with thousands more missing and presumed dead under the rubble. This is the tragic state right now, in fact, in Gaza. Right on your screens, these are the visuals. Now, smoke was seen rising above destroyed buildings near the Israel-Gaza border. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said that the U.S. is quote-unquote trying to do everything they can to ensure civilians are protected. He said that the U.S. is in almost constant contact with the Israelis to ensure that they understand what their obligations are. Listen in.
Martha, first, we're trying to do everything we can to ensure that civilians are protected, that humanitarian assistance gets into people who need it in Gaza. We are deeply, deeply aware of the terrible human toll that this conflict is taking on innocent men, women, and children, and we're working to minimize that to the greatest extent possible.
In an emergency board meeting on Sunday, the World Health Organization's Director General Tedros Adhanom described the impact of the Israel-Hamas conflict on Gaza's healthcare sector as catastrophic. He emphasized the ideal conditions for the spread of deadly diseases and highlighted the difficulty for the WHO to address the situation amid ongoing violence. A motion presented by Afghanistan, Morocco, Qatar and Yemen is under consideration, urging passage for medical personnel and supplies while assigning the WHO the responsibility to secure funding for hospital reconstruction. Take a look.
But it's stating the obvious to say that the impact of the conflict on health is catastrophic. More than 17,000 people are reported to have died in Gaza, including 7,000 children. And we don't know how many are buried under the rubble of their homes. More than 46,000 injuries have been reported. 1.9 million people have been displaced, almost the entire population of the Gaza Strip, and are looking for shelter anywhere they can find it. But nowhere and no one is safe in Gaza.
The Israeli army on Saturday released footage it said showed Israeli soldiers carrying out a raid inside a building in Jabalia, which is in northern Gaza. Now, posting on their Telegram channel, the Israeli army said its Yahalom Combat Engineering Unit identified suspicious movement, opened fire and eliminated the Hamas terrorists.
שטף ראשון לימין.
חבל!
במהלך ההיערכות זיהה באיתור תנועה חשודה.
Moving on now, University of Pennsylvania President Liz McGill, who came under fire for her stance on anti-Semitism on her institution's campus, has tendered her resignation. Now, in fact, she, along with Harvard and MIT presidents, faced backlash for their testimony on anti-Semitism amid the Israel-Hamas conflict. Jewish communities criticized their handling of pro-Israel and pro-Palestinian clashes. She will stay until an interim president is appointed. That is what Scott Bock, chair of the university's Board of Trustees, said. Listen in.
There was a moment during yesterday's congressional hearing on anti-Semitism when I was asked if a call for the genocide of Jewish people on our campus would violate our policies. In that moment, I was focused on our university's longstanding policies aligned with the U.S. Constitution, which say that speech alone is not punishable. I was not focused on, but I should have been, the irrefutable fact that a call for genocide of Jewish people is a call for some of the most terrible violence human beings can perpetrate. It's evil, plain and simple. I want to be clear. A call for genocide of Jewish people is threatening, deeply so. It is intentionally meant to terrify a people who have been subjected to pogroms and hatred for centuries and were the victims of mass genocide in the Holocaust. In my view, it would be harassment or intimidation.
Israel pounded the Gaza Strip from north to south over the weekend in an expanded phase of its 2-month-old war against Hamas. Now this after the United States wielded its UN Security Council veto to shield Israel from a global demand for a ceasefire. Listen in.
There were more Israeli strikes in the Gaza Strip on Saturday after the United States vetoed an immediate humanitarian ceasefire at the UN Security Council on Friday.
We regretfully could not support it.
13 of the Security Council's 15 members voted for the resolution.
But we cannot vote in
Britain abstained. Riyad Mansour, the Palestinian UN envoy, said they reject the result.
Ceasefire. Ceasefire. Save lives.
Since the truce collapsed last week, Israel has expanded its ground campaign into the southern half of the Gaza Strip, storming the main southern city of Khan Yunis. The already overwhelmed Nasser hospital in the city has seen the dead and the wounded through the night on Friday. Residents of the city said on Saturday that Israeli forces were ordering people out of another district just west of positions the Israelis stormed earlier this week, suggesting a further assault could be imminent. Both sides have also reported a major surge in fighting in the north. The vast majority of Gaza's 2.3 million residents have already been forced from their homes. UN agencies say there is now effectively nowhere safe to go. Israel disputes that. It says it is limiting harm to civilians by providing them with maps showing areas that are safe. It also blames Hamas for causing civilian deaths by hiding among them. Hamas fighters deny that claim.
There does remain a gap between exactly.
Washington has said it told Israel to do more to protect civilians in the next phase of the war than it has so far. But Washington has continued to support Israel's insistence that a ceasefire would only benefit Hamas. Israel launched its campaign to annihilate Gaza's Hamas rulers after fighters rampaged through Israeli towns on October 7th, killing 1,200 people and capturing 240 hostages, according to Israeli tallies.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said on Saturday that he appreciated the United States veto at the UN Security Council's blocking a demand for a ceasefire in Israel's war against Hamas in Gaza. Listen in.
I greatly appreciate the correct stance that the United States has taken in the UN Security Council. The other countries need to understand that. On the one hand, it is impossible to support the elimination of Hamas, while on the other hand, calling for a halt to the war, which will prevent the elimination of Hamas. Therefore, Israel will continue our just war to eliminate Hamas and achieve the other goals of the war that we have set out.
Israeli Prime Minister also expressed displeasure to Russian President Putin over Moscow's anti-Israel positions at the UN, particularly regarding the vetoed Gaza truce resolution. Netanyahu criticized Russia's dangerous cooperation with Iran. In response, Putin emphasized rejecting terrorism but urged caution to prevent severe consequences for civilians. Russia's foreign minister suggested an international monitoring mission to Gaza to assess the humanitarian situation. In the southern Gaza Strip, Israeli forces are advancing into the main city of Khan Yunis amid intense combat with tanks reaching key roads. Casualties, including sniper victims, are flooding Nasir Hospital. International calls for a ceasefire were rejected by Israel as the conflict with Hamas persists. Have a look.
The Israeli military is battling their way into the heart of the main city in the southern Gaza Strip on Sunday. This video released by the Israeli military on Sunday shows what it says is action from their ground and aerial offensive in Gaza. The air rumbled with constant explosions and thick columns of white smoke rose over Khan Yunis, which is sheltering hundreds of thousands of civilians who fled to other parts of the enclave. Residents said tanks had reached the main north-south road after intense combat through the night. In the city's Nasser hospital, streams of casualties were brought in on Sunday. This man said his son had been shot by a sniper. Militant group Islamic Jihad, allied to Gaza's Hamas rulers, said its fighters were battling Israeli forces in the area. Both sides also reported heavy fighting in the north of the Gaza Strip. Drone footage shot by Israel's Channel 12 News on December 8th showed the destruction of Gaza City. At an international conference in Doha, Qatar, Arab foreign ministers criticized the United States for vetoing a UN Security Council resolution on Friday, which demanded a humanitarian ceasefire. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres also spoke in the conference.
And I reiterated my appeal for a humanitarian ceasefire to be declared. Regrettably, the Security Council failed to do it, but that does not make it less necessary. So, I can promise I will not give up.
At a cabinet briefing on Sunday, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu described international calls to end the Gaza war as inconsistent with supporting the war aim of eliminating Hamas. Israel vowed to annihilate Hamas, who have ruled Gaza since 2007, after militants rampaged through Israeli towns on October 7th. According to Israeli tallies, some 1,200 people were killed and 240 were taken hostage.
Switching our focus away from Israel now, Egyptians headed to polls on Sunday for a presidential election in which Abdel Fattah al-Sisi is poised to win a third term in power. Polls closed on the first day in the Egyptian presidential election on Sunday in a vote where current President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi is poised to secure 6 more years in power. Voting runs from 9 a.m. until 9 p.m. and is spread over 3 days, with results due to be announced on the 18th of December. As voting began on Sunday morning, small crowds gathered at polling stations in Cairo, where pictures of Sisi have proliferated in the weeks leading up to the election. Riot police were deployed at entrances to the Tahrir Square in the center of the capital. Critics see the election as a sham after a decade-long crackdown on dissent. The government's media body has called it a step towards political pluralism. Victory would hand Sisi a 6-year term in which immediate priorities would be taming near-record inflation, managing a chronic foreign currency shortage and preventing spillover from the conflict between Israel and Gaza's Hamas rulers. The election comes as the country grapples with an economic crisis and a war on its borders with Gaza. On International Human Rights Day, hundreds of Bangladesh Nationalist Party supporters staged a protest advocating for a non-partisan caretaker government ahead of the January 7 general election. Led by former Prime Minister Khalida Zia, the BNP has chosen to boycott the election, limiting voters' options and potentially securing a 4th consecutive term for Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina's Awami League. The demonstration, situated in front of Dhaka's National Press Club, unfolded in the aftermath of a contentious opposition rally on the 28th of October, which escalated into violence. The BNP's decision to boycott the polls aligns with the backdrop of a months-long crackdown, purportedly resulting in the imprisonment of numerous opposition figures and the suppression of dissent, a claim disputed by the authorities. Now, newly inaugurated Argentina President warns of a coming economic shock in his inaugural speech, advocating for bold reforms to tackle soaring inflation. He aims for a 5% GDP cut on the state. Investors support, but concerns rise for the impoverished population. Challenges include negotiations in Congress and a fragile economy. Take a look.
Newly inaugurated Argentine President Javier Milei warned of a sharp and painful economic shock to come for the country in his maiden speech on Sunday. The political newcomer, who rose to power advocating a shock to the system, said there was no alternative to fix Argentina's economy, with inflation heading towards 200%.
Today begins a new era for Argentina. Today we end a long and sad history of decline and decay and begin the road to rebuilding our country. There is no turning back.
Milei's speech was light on details, but he said key steps would include a fiscal adjustment equivalent to 5% of GDP that would fall on the state, not the private sector. While his shock therapy economic plan has gone over well with investors and could stabilize the economy, it risks pushing more people into hardship. Over 2/5 of Argentines are already in poverty. The former TV pundit, who shot to fame with expletive-ridden tirades against his rivals, takes over from an unpopular outgoing center-left president. But Milei will still need to negotiate with rivals in Congress, where his libertarian coalition only has a small bloc. He's allied with the main conservative grouping and has moderated his tone in the last few weeks. Milei packed his first cabinet with mainstream conservatives and has put more radical ideas like dollarization onto the back burner. The challenges Milei faces are huge. Argentina's net foreign currency reserves are estimated at $10 billion in the red, with annual inflation surging and a recession around the corner.
Well, with that, it's a wrap on this edition of the Bulletin. Thank you very much for watching. This is me, Neha, signing off. But you do stay on with us for live coverage on Article 370 with sane legal voices on the show. Thank you very much.
On October 27, 2023, the world awakened to a new crisis. A new turn in a 70 years old civil war. One that has grave implications not just for India, but also regional stability in Southeast Asia. Today, News 9 looks at the mayhem in Myanmar. For decades, Tatmadaw, Myanmar's military junta, held the nation in a tight vice-like grip, but not anymore. Myanmar is undergoing a seismic shift as a coalition of ethnic rebel groups known as the Three Brotherhood Alliance